Welcome to In the Know with Steph and Joe. In the Know with Steph and Joe is all about small business development. These two entrepreneurs bring real life experience, laughter, and, well, just a ton of knowledge on how to build your small business and make it thrive. After all, this is your creation. Now learn how to make it sing. In the Know with Steph and Joe is brought to you through the financial support of our good friends over at Epic Media Inc. When you are truly authentic, there can be no competitors. With the continued growth of technology these days, it's essential that you have an effective internet marketing strategy in place for your business. Whether you need custom website design or help integrating social media accounts to your business marketing program, Epic Media is the company you want to rely on for your business. Check them out, www.epicmediainc.com. Of course, today, one time is it commercial and personal finance? What are we doing today?
So today we're going to talk about the differences between using other people's money versus your own money to start up your business.
So I was right.
Yeah. So either like through commercial lending or crowdsourcing or your own money, or there's so many different ways to start your business from a financial perspective. So that's what we're going to be going over. And obviously everybody can tell that Joe is not here, but we have the head Turner in the studio, Carrie. So she's going to be filling in and going through all of what they went through when they started Restoration One.
Oh yes, all the fun.
So, but yeah, so we kind of chatted a little bit in the green room and yesterday about the differences between, like, for me personally, Rich and I used our own money to start up Steph's bookkeeping service, but realistically, we needed like a couple $1,000s to start it up. I needed a laptop, some software, and my FEIN number.
Right.
So it wasn't like I, was out there buying trucks or buildings or
equipment,
inventory or
all the things. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And ours is a franchise, so there's a buy-in for that as well. So it was more than just a little bit of a chunk of change. So we had to go through a couple different avenues for that. And you want me to talk?
Yeah.
All right, I'll just talk. So
yeah, it's so odd because Joe never shuts up, right?
Well, I want permission, please. No, I just don't want to.
So maybe it's small business isn't scary with Steph and Carrie. There you
go. So when we started, there was the initial franchise commitment, and when we have new owners called or prospective owners and they say, well, they said we need this much money, I always say you need 3 times as much, and it must almost all be in cash, because cash is king. Liquid capital is the only thing that's going to get you through. And so we didn't know that. And so we wanted to take out a loan for a specific amount, and we chose to do an SBA loan because somebody said you should do an SBA loan. But we couldn't do it through the business because there was no business yet. So we had to do it through our personal. And in order to do an SBA loan or any loan of that sort, they want you to put in equity, right? That you need to have some skin in the game. And so even though we had to take out a loan, we still had to come up with, I don't know, probably $40,000 or $50,000 of our own money as, what do they call that?
Collateral.
Thank you. Collateral. Yeah. And so that felt painful. But it definitely made it very realistic to know, you have to put in this much money, and then you also have an 800-year loan that you're going to have to pay off. Your children are going to have to pay it off, and their grandchildren are going to have to pay it off. And so that was once that was accomplished, it felt very exciting to be like, we got our money, it's such a huge chunk of money all of a sudden to go from not being a small business to having this money that you have to kind of put into a place to make it grow so that you can not just pay it back, but thrive on it. So
right.
That's where we were with that first personal loan or SBA loan. That was a personal SBA loan, I guess you could call it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Well, you personally guaranteed.
We personally guaranteed
the loan.
Yeah.
So if something was to happen to the business, the bank or provider would still be able to go back and have recourse to get their monies in one way, shape, or another. Hi, Mom. Joe is handling a family matter, so that's why Carrie is here today.
I am here.
But yeah, so because the other alternative to try and get a loan but have it in the business name
Mhm.
is that you would have had to create the most amazing business plan. And I feel like not many people know how to do those. But then you not only would have create this business plan and put projections together for like a 3-year plan, typically is what they're looking for, but you would have had to sell them on the idea.
We did have to do that for our own because it was still an SBA loan.
Okay.
So Joe was still working as a broker downtown, and I was pretending that this was my company alone and that he was going to keep the income coming in. Like he had to guarantee that like his income was going to be it, and that this was my business that I was running. Which now would be like, oh yeah, I could do that. But at the time it seemed very ridiculous. Like I was not running anybody's business. And so I had to like sign over my firstborn child and write like a thesis paper on our business plan and answer. I mean, have you ever taken out an SBA loan or helped somebody with one?
I've provided the financials for them,
It's-
but it was already an existing business that was trying to
Okay.
get for growth. They needed some extra
Right.
capital.
And even in that sense, it's like going through like a graduate program. Like you're literally getting a doctorate in your stuff. Ken, you're in banking, you know that song and dance, don't you?
Yes, ma'am. It is not easy.
No.
And they're out there for small business. That's the Small Business Administration SBA
right.
loan. But yeah, if you don't have a business, then you're pledging your firstborn, and
I did.
yeah,
And she's still at risk.
Yeah.
So she's
yeah.
you know,
It,
hi,
it's
Hi, Mary Shep.
yeah, it's not designed. It's designed to help, but it's really frustrating, and
It is.
and the process isn't really designed for somebody who's not already with an established business.
It's weeding out, I think, which
Mm-hmm.
is probably for the best because if you're going to take out, a $200,000 loan, you really should be able to play this game of providing documentation and plans. Otherwise, you're in as much trouble as the bank in the sense of nobody's succeeding. But it was exhausting. I mean, and we bought a house, we've done all these things, but filling out for a small business loan was definitely like, next time I'd be like, okay, like how much blood or semen can we sell instead? Because it was just so much paperwork. And if, they got one thing was misprinted in some way, you had to restart everything over. But then we did do it again because we wanted to grow and we wanted to buy more territory. So we took out a second SBA loan, which should have been easier, and it wasn't. So
What does Derek say? Joe told me yesterday, you're the star of Restoration One show, just hanging out behind the
it's
scenes.
true. I like to be the person, the man behind the curtain or whatever.
The Oz?
Yeah, I'm
The
the
great
Oz. I'm the
Oz?
great Oz. It's true. No.
But yeah, well, but also too with an SBA loan, you can't have felonies and things.
Oh, I didn't even. Well, I
Also,
don't have one, so
yeah,
I didn't have to worry about.
because I know
that.
another client of mine wasn't able to qualify because
Oh.
of something that happened in their their much younger
Yeah.
years of their life.
Right.
They would have had to have it expunged in
Mhm.
order to even be a candidate for that type of loan.
Right. And I mean, as a small business, what other loan can you really get? I mean, I guess you could take out equity on your home, which they're not even really doing right now.
Well, so there's also lines of credit that you can get.
Right.
But typically they like to do that against your receivables. So you have to
Yes.
have an established
Right.
list of receivables. And then you can do, I think, a maximum of, I want to say around 70 or 80%, something in that range is
Mhm.
usually what they do. But it's things that are not over 60 days. So
Okay.
from current to like 60 days, anything 61 days and older is not
Mm.
considered in that numbers as collectible,
Right.
determined by the banks typically.
Yeah.
So you have lines of credit, you have that. Another way is, I know when my cousin was attempting to start up a business, he moved into San Francisco, where they have all those startup
Yeah.
kind of things, and
Yeah.
you could do crowdfunding and have people invest for small percentages
Crowdfunding.
in the business.
That sounds really exhausting.
Yeah, it's a thing.
And like the liability of that, like I don't know.
It's a whole process and a whole thing for
Mhm.
you to get people as excited about your business as you are
Mhm.
to then want to give you money to then hope that they make some type of return on that
Right.
investment.
Right.
Because at that point, if you don't have an established business, they're investing in you
Right.
as the entity.
Right. Yeah. That's, yeah, no, I wouldn't want to do crowdfunding. Although this, to not have to do an SBA loan sounds crowdfunding maybe great. But and then when we were a year in and we realized we probably should have gotten twice as big of a loan, we were like, we need a line of credit because we had opportunity and jobs, but we pay our crews. They're by weekly paycheck, but we don't get paid for maybe 60 days or so. And we couldn't get a line of credit because we were in this weird, there's always a sweet spot. We were in like the bitter spot of, we were a year past our income taxes where Joe had an actual steady income.
Mm-hmm.
And we were a year into a business that was a startup in a sense. And we had no like great revenue to prove. So we couldn't get a line of credit.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had to wait another year before we could actually receive that line of credit. And then we didn't need it as badly, of course. So,
right.
Yeah. That's what credit cards are for.
Yeah. I mean, I have a client currently that has been in business for over 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
So they've been around for a little while. Oh, hi, Aunt Janet. That's my aunt.
Derek invested in crowdfunding for an electric golf cart. How's that working out?
Oh, I drove an electric golf cart actually at a golf outing earlier this week.
Why don't they have solar paneled golf carts maybe, right? I mean,
I don't know. This could be a whole new business
I don't know. Where's this crowdfunding
we
at?
need some loans.
Yeah. I'll give you my business plan and everything.
We want to do
Phase
some solar panel.
I'm in. You were talking about semen and blood.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, that's what we're offering.
There you go.
Yeah,
that's our collateral.
Yeah, that's it.
But yes, they've been established.
Yeah.
They're clearly established.
Yeah.
They have been around. They've gone through that,
Mm-hmm.
that danger zone of startup business, and they're having a very interesting journey to getting a loan to buy a property.
Yes, because are they going off of their income?
Well, so if they personally guarantee the loan, they could get it no problem.
Okay.
But they want the business to get the loan and stand alone as its own separate entity, considering that they must know what they're doing by now if they've been established for over 15 years, like between 15 and 20.
Why couldn't the business do it then?
And so the bank is just requiring document after document, report after report. And then as each time passes, the interest rates are growing or changing.
Right.
And then each month passes, and then you have to do a whole new round of financials. And then you have to do, so it's been a very long process for them. And I'm like, it would just, clearly where your business is heading and what you guys are doing. So to personally back it at some point would just be easier just to be done. But I also understand the frustration.
And okay, so you have your business tax number, right? Like a social security number for your business. And then there's like the Duns and Bradstreet part of it. And I never really understood that because they always call me and they're like, this creates credit for your business. Is that a real thing? Like, what is that? So is that how you would get that?
So your business can establish its own, basically like its own credit score.
Right.
So Duns and Bradstreet is something. I know that I want to say, I hope I don't get this wrong, but I think Staples has or maybe it's officesupply.com. There's an office supply online website that you could put your FEIN number in and it starts reporting to the 3 credit bureaus for small businesses.
Okay.
And there was a gentleman that was with us that used to do that for a living, help small businesses establish credit in their so this way then they could show, because I know that some gas cards do that too, where they report on the FEIN, other gas cards do not. So you have to kind of learn the secret sauce of who's reporting to the business credit bureaus and who's reporting to the personal credit bureaus.
Because would that then help with a loan?
Well, because then it will show you already have established lines of credit.
Right.
And it will show that you've obviously been able to pay it back. It will show the terms.
Right.
It will show your payment history. No different than when you go to get a car loan or a mortgage or something personally, where they take a look and they look at your payment history.
Right.
So it gives you that same leg up, which may make you look a little bit more favorable when it comes time for the lending.
So then personal versus, personal investment versus loan investment, would we have a leg up on getting something because we have SBA established loans that we've paid out through the business, and you guys haven't, you guys put your money in to begin with? Would that create, it doesn't sound like it would create a disadvantage for you, but would it?
I mean, it could put us in a position where if we don't have, what did Derek say? It's a battery powered with a remote control. Crowdfunding got them their first and got a 50% discount.
Right.
Well, that's not bad.
Fun.
But well, I guess golf carts are a thing. I don't know. The one I drove on Monday was like the slowest thing ever. It was like in turtle mode, and I wanted to switch it like those like carts at the grocery store.
Yeah.
I felt like I was like jamming the pedal down. But anyways, it's the same thing when you go to get a personal loan. If you don't have established credit and the bank is taking a higher risk on you, even if you have a proper debt to income ratio, you have proper things in place to show the longevity, they will look at it and be like, right. So they get a little nervous from just what I've seen. And also when I did subprime lending for a period of time, a short period of time, that it just makes people nervous when it's the first, to be the first to give the loan. Yeah. It always makes you nervous, I feel like.
So then, like I was asking, do you think it is a disadvantage in some senses to not take out a business loan at some point, just to create that kind of credibility with the banks, or no?
I think if you can get either a business loan or if you can get one of your like fleet vehicles backed by the business,
it versus something. It's like when you're like 18 and you get a credit card.
Right.
Like you got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah. So if you're in it, like for me, it's very. I mean, I don't really need to. I mean, like my growth, unless I'm going to start acquiring other firms where I would need like a big chunk of money fast. I don't really have that type of expense where all of a sudden I need $30,000 to buy a vehicle.
QuickBooks education thing takes off though, and you need a bunch of computers and
what? Oh, the learning center?
Yeah, the learning center.
Well, that we have a conference table and some chairs that we bought that thankfully Restoration One is going to be delivering to our office on Monday.
Got the muscles, yes.
I underestimated the weight of that table by 200 pounds.
They should have delivered it here.
Well, I didn't know if I was going to be here or not. I mean, I'm here. Obviously, my office is here, but depending on the delivery time, they won't take it up the stairs. No. So they'll just leave it in their warehouse, and then I have to wait on the landlord to get the table.
We gotcha.
This whole thing. Yeah. It's a process. But I mean, even if the learning center takes off, I mean, the investment in that, I would say total between the conference table, the chairs, the TV to broadcast the PowerPoint on, and a few incidentals, I mean, is still going to be altogether out the door under 5,000 or 6,000.
Yeah, your overhead is very different than ours.
Right.
Very different.
Like if you guys grow and you need another truck or two.
We need another truck. We need another, 3 employees. We need another chunk of equipment. It's,
you need 20 or 30 grand right now.
Well, I mean, the vehicle alone is 30, right? So it's when we grow by like 50,000 each time we grow. So
So you need that line of credit is beneficial to you to afford you to be able to service your clients in a timely manner.
Right.
For me, even if I add another employee, that's not
right.
Because usually I recommend that you have about 6 months of payroll in reserve.
Right. Yeah, that sounds great. But I think that what happens is the advantage that you have is it like a loan. Like I don't know any other way, right? I have this, I've got a lot of loans because of vehicle loans, SBA loans. We got what was the
PPP?
The ID. Well, the PPP we didn't have to pay back, but the EIDL or whatever,
the disaster loan,
yeah, the disaster loan. And so I don't think about them. I pay them gratefully that for the fact that we were given the opportunity to get them, because I know so many people can't even get that far to get through their hiccups or even start their business. But at the end of the day, there is a huge chunk of money that I'm not keeping at the end of the day or reinvesting. I'm just paying interest to the man, basically. And it's painful in some senses to look at that interest at the end of the year and be like, wow, if I could pay it all off, maybe,
I mean, well, that
Yeah.
disaster loan, I mean, that interest rate on that alone, like you're not going to beat that. Or at that
No.
time, you couldn't beat that anywhere.
Right.
I mean, that
No.
was 3.75%.
Whatever it was. Yeah.
Unsecured,
Right.
and I mean, they just wanted to make sure that they had access to
Yeah.
your location and whatever. But
I mean, I literally had to like give them my left hand when it was time for the SBA loans, and that one they were like, "Oh, you like money, you have business, here you go."
Right.
They were like, "Here's all the money you want." I was like, "You don't even know my social security number." They're like, "We'll get it later. We're good.
Yeah.
You're good."
Yeah.
And they did. They kept calling me after. They're like, "We don't have the right information for you." And I'm like, "You gave us a lot of money to be kind of backtracking a year later on this one." They must have really been stressing over on Capitol Hill or wherever it was.
Wherever they got the
Going.
money
Yeah,
from.
I don't know where they got the money from. I know where it is.
But I mean, because like because when you said that you don't know how else to do it,
Yeah.
one of my former places of employment, the owners, when they started up the business, they both cashed in their 401ks.
Okay. Yes.
So they cashed in their 401ks like in its entirety.
How old were they though? Ish.
In one was in his mid 40s and there was in his late 30s.
Oh, really?
So they both cashed in their 401ks to start up and open this business.
Mm-hmm.
And then that is, I mean, in my opinion, it's extremely risky.
That's so risky
to do that. I mean, even though like when you start up a business and you're very excited about it and you're like, it's never going to fail and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that.
What if it does?
But you're like at an age,
Yeah.
at a certain point, you're at an age where you need to be more focused on your retirement planning.
You need the overall, like, okay, if this doesn't work in 10 years, then I'm 55 and
then what?
Then what do you do? Yeah.
Right. You don't want to be working till you're like 90 because you can't afford to retire.
Yeah. No, to cash in your retirement, that would, I mean, and that's assuming that you have retirement to cash in, because Joe had only been working for 5 years in corporate world, and I worked for 5 years in Chicago public schools, and we don't get Social Security. We only get pension, and you can't cash that in, and they don't offer retirement. So like if we cashed in our retirement, it would have been like enough for, a couple tanks of gas nowadays, and like 2 air movers. That wouldn't have gotten us very far.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but that is an option. I guess it's an option if you really want to invest, if you want to crowd share with for electric golf carts, you can cash in your 401k, get your golf cart. Just hope that it, drives you around your retirement community one of those days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I just think it's, even though we used our own money to start up Steph's books and, and the company's since paid us back. We've been open for 4.5 years now. So, and we, it didn't cost us that much to start up Steph's books.
Right.
But I don't know if I would have gone to that, even though I'm confident in my abilities.
Right.
I do a good job. I don't know if I would have cashed in my retirement or put my house up as collateral to start a business. I feel like for me, that would be too risky.
Right.
Like getting somebody else to give me the money and I personally back it feels less
That doesn't seem that
crazy
bad,
to me than putting my house up and using the equity in my house.
Right. Because if it doesn't work, you can just get another job. Like, well, especially you have a skill set that like you are the business, right? Like your brains and your training is the business. So you could literally just get a job somewhere else and work, and you'd have to put your little pennies towards paying off that loan eventually, right? But it wouldn't be like, you would still have your home and, maybe retirement when you get to the age that you want to stop working.
Yeah. Are there any other business owners out there that are listening on the social media or on the radio that would want to comment or call in that started a small business that either got a commercial loan or used their own money to fund the business, and how did that go? It could be anything from something current all the way back to maybe your first lemonade stand as a 5-year-old. And you got a loan from your parents to open up that stand. I mean, I don't know if that's still a thing, but I know we had those when we were little.
Well, the last time we did a lemonade stand, we bought all the stuff and then the kids pocketed the money. They didn't even pay us back. We didn't have enough paperwork. for sure.
Did you have all the right permits for the
We
city?
didn't.
Jody says, I used my own money to start off my current business.
And so Jody, you've been in business since since 2020. So how in the last 2 years have you been able to set up a plan or a thought process for the business to pay you back, or has the business already paid you back for the monies that you guys invested to start up your interior design business? So that would be, because everybody always wants to know the ROI and how fast they're going to get paid back, even if it's your own money or even if it's, somebody else investing in the money. They want to know how fast they're going to get paid back.
Right.
So when you guys created a business plan to present to the SBA, did you remember from doing it in high school, or did you guys kind of have to Google it, or did the franchise kind of set you up with
the franchise set us up a bit with it, and Joe understood all that. I was not in the wheelhouse to understand any of it yet, so I was just pretending. Different person now than I was, all those years ago, all those many 5 years ago. I learned by the school of hard knocks, not the school of actual university when it comes to business. So, but the franchise did set us up with some sort of something, and it was all BS. I mean, anybody that does loans should know, this is a really pretty thing. Sorry, Ken, don't look at me like that. No, I'm just saying, it looks beautiful on paper, but you're not a fortune teller. I think it is weeding out the people that don't understand how to follow a process and requests. I mean, in the same way that when we ask people to email us a resume and they call us or they drop it off and we're like, well, you didn't follow step number 1. So no, or they misspelled the second word in the resume. It's literally weeding out people that are not paying attention and following what there is requested of them, in my opinion. Maybe, Ken, am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong at all. Yeah.
So I know that you don't do the commercial lending in at the bank.
Yeah. So you take a look at the business plan, you take a look at the people. So you look at the character, collateral, and content of the business, what are risky businesses, what aren't risky businesses. So a restoration a service business isn't as risky as, let's say, a restaurant or a bar. Right. So we take a look at trends and, okay, if we're going to give you $500,000 to start this business, what are the chances that that's going to close in the first 5 years? And restaurants, C-stores or convenience stores, they go under relatively quickly, right? Service business, a restoration perhaps a plumbing business, something like that, will say, well, okay, the plumber's been a plumber for 10 years, and has their own tools and stuff and have done some things on the side. They should be okay, right? An insurance guy going in with a franchise, there's again, the risk isn't so great because of the franchise backing, right? But if it was just going to be Carrie and Joe's mold removal, they may go, okay, you're an insurance
we have no experience at all. Nothing.
Yeah. So we, as a bank, we always will look at the risk, right? And if we're like, well, you know what, they're putting their own money in, we feel pretty good about it. Yeah, we'll do it, but we'll do it at a higher percentage rate, right? And we'll try to make it uncomfortable for you to turn it down, or say, okay, I'll live by those terms, instead of saying, oh, you guys have been in business now for 8 years, you show good profit and loss, your balance sheet is good, we'll give you that at a 2% or a 3%, whatever. Right?
I'd take it for 2%.
Yeah, right. Anybody would, right? But
that's it. She's transferring all her loans. We'll talk after the show.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes, 2% deal.
So Jody says that she recently started taking a paycheck from the business. So I would say that that's good, considering that she started right at the start of the pandemic.
That's really good.
And they had recently moved to the area from out of state.
Yeah.
And so she had to establish herself, start her business. and
Get
go
through
live
whatever
through the
hell
pandemic.
was just happened, right?
So it's
That's great.
that's like a whole like triple threat there.
It is. And I mean, I think it's a whole nother, I don't know if you guys already did the show. Sometimes I try really hard to watch, but and I don't know if it's a whole show or not, but allowing yourself to take a paycheck was a hard thing for us because we believe in just reinvesting because we have to be able to pay, we have to be able to expand, we have to do this. And so we were at first just taking out equity, and then it was like, no, like or like taking, like $100 this week if we can make it on this, or like $2,500 this week, and then it was like, no, consistent paycheck. We're no longer, we changed to an S corp. We needed to be employees of our business and take paychecks and not feel bad about it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, one of the CPAs that I work really closely with when I started up Steph's Books, for the first, a few months, I didn't really take anything out of the business. I'm like, whatever, I'll just, reinvest it and, kind of pay back whatever. And he's like, no, you have to start taking some type of paycheck on day one, whether you start off taking $50 a week versus whatever, because you have to be able to start to plan and budget for when you hire your first employee. So if you pay yourself as the owner what you would pay your first employee per hour, then one, you're going to be able to review your margins and make sure that you're in that area, and you'll be able to review your, all of your numbers accurately versus I guess if I paid somebody this to do this, it would be,
Yeah.
So he's like, you have to start taking the money from day one, paying yourself so you could figure out for expansion when you're going to hire somebody, or when you could truly afford that next tipping point, like you described for you, when you want to add a vehicle.
Right.
It includes staff and equipment and tools for that vehicle. So it's not just the vehicle.
No, it's got to be wrapped. It's got to, all the things that go with it. Yeah, well, that's a good point, because actually when we were in our first year, our field consultant that was part of corporate, he would look at our numbers and our percentages, and he was like, your labor's way too low. And I'm like, how could labor be too low? Like, low cost of goods is good, because then you're getting it on the other side. And he's like, no, that means Joe's doing all the work. And I was like, he is. He really is. And so that doesn't make any sense for what we actually can, how we could sustain if we were legitly working and having people work for us and everything. So that makes a lot of sense now, looking back at it.
Yeah.
So where were you 5 years ago? Steph.
I'm not saying. I'm just saying, hey, it's past the bottom of
God,
the hour. And of course, we just want to give a quick shout out to our good friend over there at epicmediainc.com. When you are truly authentic, there can be no competitors. You know what? If you need anything to do with social media marketing, web pages, those type of things, Jess is awesome over there. Check her out at www.epicmediainc.com. Also, our good friends at Steph's Bookkeeping Service, www.stephsbooks.com, 847-942-3004. And let's not forget Restoration One Water, Fire, Mold, 847-264-4664.
Yeah, just don't call right now, though, because
that's right.
Carrie's on air.
Carrie's on air.
Well, it's raining. Call me if you need me. I will.
Oh, yeah, it is raining.
I got enough.
Oh, it is raining?
It just started. You hear it?
No, I can't. I got headphones.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. It sounds like it's pouring. Now, fortunately, we're at a place where Joe isn't doing everything, and I'm not any longer doing everything. So I have plenty of people to pick up the phone if you do, in fact, need to call us. Call, please. Yeah. But there's, the other thing, I said it really quick.
Told you.
Eli's getting Eli, huh?
Yep.
Phew.
So, the interesting thing is, back at the turn of right at the end of the last century.
That's a weird thing to say.
Yeah. Okay. That's when I got a SBA loan to start.
That's in the 1900s.
Late
right?
1900s.
The turn of the century. Okay, go on.
So, I got a SBA loan to start Planet Coffee. And so, we had it down to about $140,000 to start a coffee shop
Wow.
at the Huntley Outlet Malls. If you guys remember the Huntley Outlet Malls, right?
Oh yeah.
And we had to find an investor to put in 40,000.
Right. That's
Right.
your collateral.
So we
right?
had,
That's your
so
equity.
we had to sell the idea first to a business guy who had liquid cash to inject. We had to give him ownership,
Yeah.
a silent, partner or whatever, and say, okay, hey, here's the payback. So we ended up having 2 loan payments, right?
Yeah.
Because we had the bank $100,000 loan that we had to pay back, but then in the agreement we had with our investor, we had to pay them as well.
And
Right?
that's a hard pill to swallow.
It's
At least for
hard.
me, it is,
Right.
because who's working hard, right?
Yeah.
Like this dude isn't doing anything really besides
Right.
having the cash.
Right.
And it's a very hard pill to swallow. And I have a hard time with that too. Like thinking about somebody being like, oh, well, we could open up another restoration one over here and you could just be a silent partner. You could put in 50% or this or that. And I'm like, no, like I know what my value, and I couldn't exhaust myself to have to give you half.
Right.
Maybe it's greedy. I don't know, but
Yeah.
it's hard to swallow, having to pay an investor back. It's hard enough to have to pay a loan back.
Yep.
With 100% interest.
Right.
Well, some people have to also be careful and look at what you're signing, because you have your traditional loans that are principal and interest, and you're paying those off, and those, are going to have a higher monthly payment because it's just the same as like your car payment or your mortgage. Right. But then there's the other side of it where you have an investor, or sometimes you have those unconventional lenders that like those private firms, and they do those balloon payments.
Yeah.
So you're paying maybe $200 a month towards interest of your $200,000 loan, but unless you pay over that $200 a month, you're never paying down the principal, ever and ever.
Right.
And then of course, after the 3 years or 4 years of the term of the loan, they'll of course re-up it because they just made
all their money,
right?
Like all of your money.
They just made all of that $200,000 back, and now everything that they keep making on you is going to keep being that juice.
I looked into it at one point because we're territories, and we had to buy a territory. We started in one area, and what we realized is we were servicing north of it so much that if we didn't buy it, we would lose 50% of our business, because we're a younger franchise as a whole, and people are buying them, right? And the corporation is not being like, hey, do you guys want this? Or should somebody else was interested, you want it. So like we had no choice, or we really were going to suffer. And so we had to come up with, I don't remember what it was. It wasn't even like crazy amounts. It was like $75,000. It's not that it's not crazy, but I looked into those and I was like, oh, hell no. Like you would have to be in a really, really awful situation to have to sign with the devil on that, I think. We couldn't do it. We were like, we're just going to try and chance it until we can make it happen. And we lucked out. It's luck. I mean, a lot of business can be skill, luck, and hard work.
Timing,
timing, all the good things. So, but those like QuickBridge, I think is one. Like I still get emails from them, like, "Hey, want $500,000? We can get it to you tomorrow." I'm like, no.
Yeah, of course, because every time they'll do it because they're charging you.
They're making
8 to 10%.
How is it even legal?
And then they do. I mean, like realistically, when I did subprime lending, I don't know how any of that was legal. I mean,
what was that like? What's that like?
So subprime lending is where people have to go when they can't get a loan, like a conventional loan from a bank.
Okay.
So people that have had bankruptcies, people that maybe have short-term jobs, people that don't have like any credit.
Yeah. They now call them non-QM, non-qualified mortgages.
Okay.
Because subprime just doesn't sound good.
Yeah. So we did just cars and personal loans.
Okay.
And so, but I would have a car loan at 32.99%.
Wow. You could get it.
I've done one at 39 when I was with American General.
Really?
Yeah.
How is that legal to like take that much? I guess if you need it that bad,
they're high risk.
They're
That's
high
right.
risk.
Can't get it anywhere
They're high
else.
risk.
And
They
you
can't
need
get a
it.
loan anywhere else, and
Well-
you need a car.
And it's
And
That's right.
you're a human being, and you're allowed to do that, I guess,
We'll
right?
take
I'm
that.
no, not I'm not
No,
like
no, no,
Right.
no. I'm
the
saying
company I worked for set
the
those
person
parameters.
signing
Right,
it knows
right.
what they're getting into, right?
We'll gladly take
um,
that 84
yeah, right,
citation for
right.
collateral.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, they would do that. I mean, we weren't even bad. I mean, our branch manager really wouldn't let us go above 32.9 was really
Yeah.
where she would max us out, which sounds high, but
Woo,
our lowest
it is
rate
high.
was at 18.9. But this is
That's
back
like
in
credit- that's like above
2009 when everybody was filing bankruptcy.
Yeah.
So it was like the thing back then.
It was like cool to like file for
It's still
bankruptcy.
high.
Yeah, it's still a thing, guys.
Credit cards wish they could charge that.
But I mean, some of our competitors at that time in 2008,
Mhm.
2009, they were charging close to 52%.
Wow.
And so you would get 52.99% on a car. Your car would be $3,000 that you could basically, that's the payment that it would put you in based
Yeah.
upon your debt to income ratio. So you're buying a car that's $3,000, which you know what problems
Never
come
gonna
along
make
with
it.
that.
You're going to be paying it
You're-
off.
You're never going to
long
pay off the
past
car.
this
We're
debt.
going to wind up
Yeah.
repoing it before you pay off
Yeah.
that car.
Well, I guess there's
So,
yeah.
and it's going to get sold at auction. I mean, I lasted there a couple of years and I just couldn't do it anymore. I
Yeah.
felt so icky every
Moral- the-
time
your
I
moral
went home.
compass
It
was
just
like,
wasn't
mhm.
for me. But then on the flip side of it, these people, you could look at their credit bureaus and you could see that historically, every 7 years, they filed bankruptcy. Every 7 years,
So
all the way back to
this
the
is like their
80s.
trend, right?
So it's
Mhm.
the game that they play so they know
They know what's going to happen.
how it
And they're like,
works.
they'll just take it away. I'll file bankruptcy, and then I'll do it again. And like
Right.
they're not.
So,
Hmm.
but yeah, because you have those payday loans,
Mhm.
which is a whole another thing. That's fast money
Uh,
that I know that
what
that
do they
they'll
take
give
normally for that? They take
you.
The
The
payday
300%.
30. What?
Yeah.
How much?
300%.
How can
Yes.
they take 300% of your paycheck?
Not
Well,
your
no.
paycheck,
No.
just interest on it.
Oh,
Yeah.
the interest. Oh, to pay
Mhm.
it back.
So you have like basically, I think it's like less than 30 days
Yeah.
to pay it back in its entirety, and you don't have that interest.
Oh,
But once
okay.
you go into 31st day, then it's 300%.
Oh, my goodness.
Like it's extreme.
Yeah.
And depending on the size of the loan, you either put your car title up so then they could
Take it.
repo
right.
your car,
Mhm.
or you sign a wage garnishment notice
Right.
and then they'll
Yep.
just garnish your wages through your employer.
Right.
So yeah, there's a lot of risk involved when you're getting loans, but
Mhm.
I would say that there's a difference between when you're getting a loan personally for something
Your
versus
business.
But if you have bad habits as a individual person, you're going to have those same
Yeah.
bad habits as a business
Mhm.
owner.
Mhm.
It's not just because you're a business owner isn't going to make it
Right. Right.
less.
And the like it'll be a lot of luck if your business does like dig
Mhm.
out of
Mhm.
that kind of situation, because clearly you can't make those choices based on actual finances. They're more on, those
Mhm.
pretend
Yeah.
futures.
And I think that's where a lot of business owners trip up is, I got this, but you know what? I need to pay my mortgage. I need,
Mhm.
and so that money that they borrowed is some of it's the last on the list to get paid back a lot of time. Oh, hey, Carrie, it was a tight month. I'll get you,
Yeah.
give me a couple
Yeah,
weeks.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And then that whole rabbit hole starts and the slipping and sliding starts very
It's giving
quickly.
me like a little anxiety just thinking about it. Like I've
Yeah.
never I'm the person that pays off a credit card, whether it be in the business or personal, like every month.
Yep.
Mhm.
I can't know that I have, because credit card interest is really expensive too,
Yep.
Right.
and like it kills me if I'm a day late and they charge me that $25 or whatever. I just that living a life of risk like that and having that much debt would just I would never make it. I
Mhm.
would be just digging a hole
Mm.
right
Yeah,
now
it's
to
terrible,
my head in.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, I watched a few businesses
I'm
where
sure.
they got the EDIL loan and the PPP loan. So some of them, because of the size of their payrolls and because of
Mhm.
the size of their businesses, they were able to get a pretty substantial
Mhm.
chunk of money during that time, which was great. But the problem is that
What are they doing with that?
I saw a couple situations where the owner didn't use the money accordingly. And it was great because they bought these machines and stuff
Mhm.
for the business, but they bought brand new machines.
Mhm.
And then they bought themselves like a brand new truck
Right.
or whatever.
Right.
And then now that money is gone.
But they have to pay it back.
And the reality is setting in of like where you're like you bought all this equipment, hired all these people, were kind of living super fly for that, whatever 6 to 9 months of time that it took you to spend that money. And then now the reality is setting in because you didn't know your numbers before you took that money.
Right.
And now you're got these people on these outrageous salaries driving in these brand new vehicles.
Right.
And you
can't
weren't in a position to afford it because your prices didn't increase to reflect that to now pay back this $500,000 loan.
Well, and the EDIL or EIDL, it specifically said, I believe, or maybe it was the PPP. One of them said you can't use it for expansion, which I thought was interesting. They both said it. Well, so I know PPP. I know exactly what that was for, and that's like we were almost too conservative with that one. I had no idea I wouldn't have to pay it back, or I would have maybe been less like I wasn't even truthful with it. I was like, oh, we'll see how we can get with this kind of employee, whatever, because I didn't want to have to pay it back if necessary. But I feel like the expansion part could have been actually great because then you could have grown your business a bit. I don't know. I mean, I know what it was for, but if you have to pay for like the hurt that happened, how are you ever going to pay it back without growth and like thrive from it? I feel like it kind of dug you in a hole, maybe.
I think there's a difference between you taking the money, like if you got $500,000 from like the loan, and then you bought $100,000 truck.
Well, that doesn't
really.
Make you money.
What is that going to serve?
Right. Yeah.
Like that's not going
not
to.
Anything.
You just have a pretty truck.
Right.
But if you took the money and you bought more assets, because technically, if your loan was over, I believe $50,000. You agreed to give the SBA access to your assets if something should happen to the business. They get dibs on your assets.
Right. Yeah.
It says it in one of the paragraphs.
I mean, maybe it did, but like they didn't even know my phone number for a long time after they gave me that money. So I'm not sure.
That was a processing thing.
That was a processing thing. Yeah.
The loan document itself.
Okay.
Like if it was over $50,000.
So then there's their risk.
You're agreeing. So if you took that money and you bought, dryers or
equipment
you bought
some sort,
that whatever that thing that you guys have at your shop with the little baskets, whatever,
the ultrasonic.
Yeah. So if you got like that, I don't know how much that costs, but if you got something like that, like when you go to the jewelry store and they like put your jewelry in a little cleaning thing and it's that's literally a giant jewelry cleaner. That's all it is. It's using ultrasonic like waves to clean stuff. I thought it was like a deep fryer with the baskets.
It is a deep fryer without oil, and it cleans things. It doesn't, don't put your chicken wings in there, okay, Steph?
All right, fine.
Keep your chicken wings out.
But so if you did that, you're getting an actual asset of the business. That asset is in turn producing some type of finance, like revenue coming into the company because now you're able to do this. So I feel like they
didn't want you to buy a new building with it or real estate with it, or
they just didn't want you to go out there and
buy like a Hummer and wrap it, and
which
I totally saw people driving really fancy cars that were wrapped all of a sudden.
Well, there was that guy that made the news. He bought a Lambo or two and
with his loan.
I think he got like $3 million or something, right?
Yeah.
What was his business? Like, what did he do?
I don't think it was a real business. Like he just submitted in for multiple different things, right?
Yeah. Well, I know people who are independent 1099 insurance salespeople who got PPP loans.
Yeah, I know people like that too, and I feel like that's crossing a line.
Well, I wouldn't. I didn't apply for one here.
Right.
The PPP monies, so the initial first round of it when it first came out, that was for businesses, established businesses. And then in like June or July, so like a few months later, they opened it up to 1099 individuals.
Which
because
you're paying yourself.
Well, because if I'm a salesperson for your business and I'm 1099, so I'm my own entity and I have my own expenses and my own everything, I might not be on your payroll, but I still rely on that income
That's true.
to pull it in.
I mean, Pete and I did the same. We looked at it and talked about it. I'm like, hey, there's money out there. you're going to have to pay. Why do we want a loan? You're going to have to repay it. You
Yeah.
know? Had we known that you
That's
were
what I'm
never going to
saying,
have to
right?
pay it, we'd have been like, oh shit, let's get it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. If I would have known, I would have doubled the amount
Yeah.
because we could have used it for paying. And I was really adamant about like paying our employees. Like
Right.
I thought somebody was going to be like looking at us like, you know, like, what did you do with that 25
Yeah.
cents?
Did you give that to?
Yeah, yeah. And
But-
so I gave it. But
And Steph, you read a lot of that, and you were like, "Listen, Joe, the people doing these PPPs have to, you know."
Well, like the PPP was not, it was fine, but you had to be, you know, if you got the money for, so originally it was like 65% of it had to be payroll.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then the other 35% of it had to be
utilities or
utilities
something.
and rent.
Right.
Mhm.
And then they switched it. I think it was like a 75-25, and then it went up to like, I don't know, like 90 or whatever.
Right.
And then like at a point they said they don't care if your loan was under a certain dollar amount. They didn't care. Just submit in some paperwork or your Schedule C if
Yeah.
you're a individual.
If I would have known, I could have probably gotten.
But
like,
the
much more.
the
I
SBA loans, the actual loans, those were very, like if you read it and the way it's written, like if they came to audit, I would say probably 97% of the businesses that got that money, there's no way that they used that money properly
Right.
to the T. But the expectation was unrealistic though.
Yeah.
Like the way
Right.
that they wrote that, it
Right.
was unrealistic, but it
Right.
was super cheap, easy, obviously, money
It
to
was so easy.
get. I mean,
It
who
was-
wouldn't have taken it?
I didn't.
Well,
Well,
you're a saint. Ken. You're really a step above.
No,
Uh,
we were just going. Okay, if we get this, we'll have a payment. We really can't afford a payment.
You don't.
Yeah, right,
You would be
you know.
paying like you would be saving it to pay it back.
Right.
Almost, right?
Exactly.
It
We
doesn't
would
make
have sat on it and
Yeah.
said,
well, yeah, and then the interest rates of what you would be getting in like money market accounts
Right.
or
Mhm.
investments at
Right.
the time weren't enough to exceed the
No.
interest, and so it
It
just
just wasn't
seemed,
worth it.
you know,
Yeah.
there's no way to really play the game in a way that was going to be beneficial to
Mhm.
where you would
Right.
make a little bit of money
And-
on the back end of it.
Right.
and here
So-
at 21.6 and that it's always, you know, had we taken it, we would have had to pay it back, right?
Mhm.
We didn't, so then we go, we should have, but that's just the way it goes. If we did it, they would have said, okay, now we need the money. You know,
But they keep pushing the start date back for payments on those, but a lot of people don't realize that they're just
I
accruing
didn't know.
interest.
I
Just
didn't know until
accruing
we
interest,
started
yeah.
working together that it was accruing interest because they didn't. Like I said, they had no information.
Well, they stopped
for me.
sending letters.
They didn't send me a
That's
letter. They
correct.
didn't know my
Nope.
email address or my phone number. They literally only knew my bank account
Yep.
and interjected money into it. And then they were like, I had no contract I could find. I couldn't find anything. So I had no idea. So people probably aren't paying it back right now.
Well, a lot of people aren't because they're not required to, and they won't start paying it back. And then you also,
You owe so much.
it's like a
on it.
25-year loan or
Yep.
something
It's a
like
30-year
that.
loan.
Yeah,
I think
it's
it's a
30.
mortgage. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think you and I calculated it one time on one of the shows before that if you took like this, you know,
Mhm.
$50,000 loan, you're going to wind up paying back like 130,000 on
yeah,
it over the
yeah.
30-year
Yeah.
amortization. You know, so people really need to think about it. Like we took the money, but I amortized it out by myself
Right.
over a 7-year
Yeah.
period of time, and I found it to be
Worth it then.
fine.
We're gonna have to go visit ours again.
You know, like
Because then the question is, when we do have excess money, like, do I use that for paying off loans or do I use that for investing in the company? You know, because I'm sick of loans. I want to be loan free.
well,
But-
I would say it all. And let me tell you Steph's job because I know I'm
Please.
a bookkeeper.
You do work for me. I'll take you. You guys are a step above me. I'm a certified
No,
teacher, so you know.
what I tell people is, you know, it all depends financially what you're trying to do. If you want to be debt free, then you should have a date when that thing should be paid off, and you'll pay accordingly, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, we take even in my personal life, like I'll take maybe a car loan out at 5 years,
Mhm.
so that puts an oh shit buffer in to the term of the loan, just in
Mhm.
case if anything
Mhm.
was to come up. But I might pay it back as if it's a 3-year loan and just make those extra payments. And if
Mhm.
something happens, then I have that buffer
Right.
to not make that escalated payment. So I look at my interest rate and then I look at the term,
Mhm.
and then I will kind of factor it out and figure what I want to do. Like Rich and I just recently shaved 10 years off our mortgage.
Mhm.
Thank God.
So So, we
Wasn't
kind
an
of
80-year mortgage.
yeah.
Right.
So we kind of just look at all these different
Right.
things and scenarios, and then we tackle them that way.
Yeah.
I mean, we could probably do a whole show on debt
Yeah.
and paying it off. I think we did
Yeah.
one a year and a half ago on the
Mhm.
waterfall method or the snowball method.
Snowball.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so we did that. We could probably circle back around to that, I'm sure, as people are starting to pay things back at this point.
Yeah, like that's where I am right now. It's like I do want to be debt free. I can't believe like I just live my life without like it's like back there, but it would be amazing to actually be able to take more return, more, take more in than I am giving to the banks
Right.
and all that good stuff.
Well, you have to also think about it. If you were completely debt free in your business,
Mhm.
then you stop getting some of those write-offs. Like right now, you write
Oh.
off the interest,
That's right.
you write off the
Yeah.
depreciation.
Yeah,
You eventually the depreciation is going to run out because
Right.
it's only so many years per
Right.
vehicle. So if you're
we
completely,
buy vehicles left and right. I have no worry about depreciation in my vehicles.
but it's
We
like
just bought another one.
you slowly lose some of
Yeah,
those
it's
write-offs,
true.
and then you have to factor it in. Is that 9% interest on that loan going to exceed the 21 to 25% income tax you're going to have to pay on that difference?
It's no
So
wonder
it's a
businesses
game.
don't make it, because if you don't have the resources yourself or the smarts to like go to somebody who does, you just can't juggle all that. That's I've been reading this book about having like a CFO and like their sole responsibility to just look at the numbers.
Mhm.
It is definitely a full-time job, like 100%. You could spend all day looking at one company's numbers and just moving things around and all that good stuff.
Is that the book you guys got at the last the thing?
No,
in
no.
No,
This
it's a
was
different one?
this is another one. I don't even remember what it is. The E Factor maybe, or the E Myth.
Oh, the E-Myth.
Yeah, the E Myth. Yeah, so this is the E Myth, the CFO one.
Mm.
So far, it's good.
I think Rich has that book.
Yeah.
Maybe he has a bunch of books, but I don't know if he's read them or not. But he has them.
He's got books.
Mm-hmm.
He likes how they look on the bookshelf.
Yes, he wants to make a library.
Make
whole
it
thing.
fancy. Yeah.
But so I don't know. So just to kind of recap, because I know that we've kind of jumped all over.
That's when
but-
I'm on the show. That's what we're gonna do. Just so you know.
But I feel like with both options, with what I experienced with doing personal investing, and with what you've experienced with doing kind of a combination of personal
Mhm.
investing and getting loans, there's risks and things that each business owner needs to sit down and
Mhm.
evaluate what their risk and comfort level is.
Mm-hmm.
And you also really need to sit down and make sure that you have a viable business, especially if you're going to be taking out certain size loans.
Right. Yeah.
Because do you know what the smallest commercial loan is that banks give out, or no?
Depends on the bank. Usually,
Like your bank.
Yeah, we try to go somewhere between. Lowest is probably 50,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that would be fine for us, but I don't think you needed $50,000 for a startup of this, did you?
No, I need like $5,000.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you could have worked a couple extra, like a month or two extra
Right.
hard and like whatever,
Mhm.
could have been serving, at the bar.
Right.
And
Yeah.
made your $5,000 and started your thing up. But
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
I
awesome.
mean, thankfully for us, like, because it was,
Yeah. No,
with
it's so
working
good. It's
B2B,
great.
I don't need
Right.
that. I mean, like, just like with Derek, I mean, he does financial planning and advising.
Yeah.
I mean, he just needed to get his licenses, and
Right.
so I don't know how much that costs, but and then just an office space, or
Right.
he could have worked from home and gone to Panera
Mhm.
to do his meetings.
Well,
So it's very different per business.
the
but
the bread investor.
The bread investor. I'd invest in bread any day.
There you go.
But it's just, so if banks are kind of looking around 50,000 for commercial loans, that kind of weeds out some of those smaller,
Those-
micro businesses or businesses that just don't require that
Right.
level of investment.
Right.
So are you going to give a final read for Epic Media?
We can. Of course, today's episode has been brought to you by the financial support of our good friends at epicmediainc.com. It's essential that you have an effective internet marketing strategy in place for your business. They offer an array of services. Check them out at www.epicmediainc.com.
And Carrie, did you want to tell everybody how to get a hold of you one last time?
Yeah, give us a call at 847-264-4664. It is raining. Check your basements. You know, the sooner you check it, the less often you need us and the less expensive it is. So hopefully this just waters the flowers and not your carpets.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. I just came up with that.
Steph Conley, Steph's Bookkeeping, 847-942-3004 or stephsbooks.com. Have a good weekend, and we will see you guys next week.
Bye.
Thanks for getting caught in the net for In the Know with Steph and Joe. Enjoy the weekend. Tune in 8 p.m. tonight for the Dream Home Experts live from Quiet Cool Studios.